Speaker. Rising municipal insurance premiums must be reined in.
Yep.
Under the Negligence Act, damages can be recovered from any defendant, even if they are found to be only 1% at fault. Municipalities, often targeted as insurers of last resort, can be on the hook for massive damage awards. If adopted, this motion will send a clear signal to municipalities. We hear you. It will send a clear message to taxpayers. We respect you. It will say that this House stands ready to support real, comprehensive reform to protect you from rapidly rising insurance premiums. The current liability model is driving these increases and leaves the door open to massive damage awards. Facing added risk and increasing costs, insurance premiums must go up. To afford those higher premiums, municipalities often have no choice but to increase taxes or cut services. For taxpayers, this is a lose-lose situation. Speaker, before I became an MPP, I served as a councillor in North Perth. Even then, our council had to grapple with this issue. Since I was elected to the legislature, I have spoken up many times for the municipalities I represent. At the 2012 Roma-Ogra Conference, I supported the town of Minto in a meeting with the Attorney General. Along with many others, we asked for reform. That was 2 years ago. Last April, I wrote to the Premier on behalf of the municipality of West Perth. We told her how this is affecting us. Again, we called on the government to fix the problem. I want to read a letter of support endorsed by many municipalities. If this situation continues, the scaling back on public services in order to limit liability exposure and insurance costs will only continue. Regrettably, it will be at the expense of the communities we all call home. In a resolution from the Township of Lake of Bays, Mayor Bob Young said, "It is unfair to ask 444 municipalities in Ontario to carry the lion's share of a damage award when at minimal fault, or to assume responsibility for someone else's mistake." End quote. At last count, a total of 187 municipalities across the province have endorsed this motion. I thank them for their overwhelming support. I would also like to thank those who have given their guidance and advice on this resolution. Thank you to Larry Ryan, Derek Sarlewis, and Bryce Civic from the Frank Cowan Company, Pat Vanini and Matthew Wilson from AMO, Matt Harashi, Doug DeRabi, and Ralph Palumbo from the Insurance Bureau of Canada, and Bill Nelson and Miles Dadson, who are trusted insurance brokers in Perth-Wellington. Small and rural municipalities, often least able to afford rising premiums, are supporting us. In Perth-Wellington, municipalities including Mableton, Minto, Perth County, West Perth, North Perth, Perth South, St. Mary's, Stratford, and Wellington North have passed resolutions supporting my motion. Municipalities are demanding action, and action is long overdue. In fact, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario has been calling on this government to reform the joint and several liability system for years. In 2011, an AMO survey found that municipal liability premiums had increased 22% over 5 years. At the AMO conference, former Premier Dalton McGuinty promised to ask his Attorney General and Minister of Municipal Affairs to quote, sit down with you and see how together we can address your concerns relating to joint and several liability. By the way, that was just before the current Premier took over as Minister of Municipal Affairs in 2011. But today, almost 3 years later, the problem has worsened, and the government has yet to act. Municipal liability reform is still among AMO's top priorities. We need to know where it stands among the government's priorities, or even if it's on the list. In November, I met with representatives from AMO. They stressed the need to reform joint and several liability, the joint and several liability model, to relieve the burden on municipalities. British Columbia has enacted a form of proportionate liability. Other provinces have also taken action. According to the American Tort Reform Association, 42 American states have undertaken legislative reforms. Speaker, I want to share with the House a few examples of how municipalities in Ontario have been affected. This year, the City of Brantford's insurance premiums went up almost 20%, coming in at $2.3 million. The Township of Wellington North faces a 6% hike in its insurance premium. They were advised to double their liability coverage from $25 to $50 million. The warden of Renfrew County wrote to me, good guy in Renfrew, yes. The current situation is not sustainable, and a long-term solution is required that is beneficial to all parties. This solution is critical to providing future financial stability for municipalities, and action must be taken now so that a proactive approach can be achieved and a crisis averted." End quote. Insurers have also expressed concerns. In November, I met with representatives from Frank Cowan Company, who stressed the urgency of getting the system under control as soon as possible. I was told that many would say we are in a municipal insurance crisis. I repeat, a municipal insurance crisis. I was told we need sustainability and stability in the insurance marketplace. I want to read a letter of support I received from Ralph Palumbo, Vice President, Ontario Insurance Bureau of Canada. In recent years, municipalities have seen a dramatic increase in their insurance premiums, primarily due to rising litigation and claim costs. Sorry, Speaker, I'm stuck. Unfortunately, these cost increases are absorbed by ratepayers in the form of higher residential and commercial property taxes. IBC welcomes the debate on the implications of joint and several liability on Ontario municipalities. End quote. We've heard many case examples highlighting the need for reform. In 2004, a woman driving her sister and 3 friends down a rural road dividing the city of Oshawa and the township of Scugog, believing a car was coming at her from the opposite direction, the driver veered into a ditch. She lost control, struck a culvert, and flipped her car. Tragically, the driver and her sister suffered serious injuries, leaving them quadriplegic. The sisters filed a lawsuit against Oshawa and Scugog. While the driver was found 1/3 responsible because she was speeding, the municipalities were assigned the majority of fault at 1/3 each. The judge concluded that the road presented an unreasonable risk of harm and should have had a painted line, even though the Ontario Manual of Uniform Traffic Control did not require one. The case cost the municipalities, their taxpayers, and insurers more than $20 million. To be sure, no one would deny anyone the lifelong medical care they need, but it is not fair for municipalities where they took every reasonable step to ensure public safety to pay up when a massive and unexpected award for damages comes their way. We need reform that recognizes that. We need reform that is based on fairness to all concerned. Joint and several liability insurance form is, I recognize, very complex. It involves existing provincial laws, it involves years of legal precedent, and it concerns many competing interests. All of these must be considered. That is why this motion does not dictate a specific avenue of reform. It is not intended to. The government needs to listen to the advice it has received from AMO, from municipalities, from insurers, from the legal profession, and from its own public servants. Solutions are not straightforward, but we know they are possible. No longer can the government point to complexity as an excuse to keep putting off meaningful change. We need to see the government give the issue the attention it deserves. That is the reason for this resolution. Speaker, it is my understanding that the Ministry of the Attorney General has held ongoing discussions around reform. I am encouraged to hear that the ministry staff recently reached out to the legal community and have been working with insurers and other stakeholders to find a solution that will work for Ontario. But after all this consultation, action is overdue. It is time for this government finally to make this a priority. On this issue and so many others, municipalities want to see action. They are tired of bringing their concerns to the government and receiving in return little more than an excuse or a pat on the head. I call on the government to take all the feedback they already have and use it to bring about real reform. I call on them to do it now. I hope that all members from all parties will come together today to represent their communities. I ask my colleagues to support us, including those from Mississauga, Ottawa, Hamilton, St. Catharines, which all have endorsed this motion.
So is Windsor.
Municipalities and taxpayers cannot afford further delays. They cannot continue waiting on their insurance premiums to continue to skyrocket. I ask for the support of this House, and I look forward to questions and comments. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you.